हेलो एवरीवन, माय नेम इज़ अमृतपाल फ्रॉम हिंदी गौरव ऑस्ट्रेलिया। आज की भागदौड़ की ज़िंदगी में जहां सुकून से अखबार पढ़ना इतना मुमकिन नहीं, वहां इस सुविधा को उपलब्ध करवाते हैं इंटरनेट पे हिंदी गौरव ऑस्ट्रेलिया। दिस इज़ द ओनली डेली ऑनलाइन इंडियन ऑस्ट्रेलियन न्यूज़पेपर सिंस 2010 and it's been started by Mr. Anuj. We are gladly starting this new series of Hindi Gaurav Ki Chaupal with Hindi Gaurav and Mr. Vishaal from Evergreen Memories. Today we are gladly starting our new series of Hindi Gaurav Ki Chaupal, and I hope you like this show because you're gonna meet all the renowned personalities from our area and community. I'll promise you will remain entertained throughout our show as we're gonna have a last segment of rapid fire round in which we ask quick questions to Mr. Jeff and we'll make sure he don't even get a second to think about it. Our very first guest to our show is none other than MP Paramedic Dr. Jeff Lee. Welcome, Dr. Jeff Lee.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. For this discussion, we're having a panel over here, and I would like to introduce that. We have Sanjay Deshwal, who is Australian Visa Migrant Consultancy Services and running this business successfully from 18 years. And he gives all the professional advices and competent one to set the careers of 1,000 people who migrate over in Australia. The next one we have Parag Shah, who is ex-president Gujarat and running successful business of Patsha Frozen from 8 years. The next sitting to me is none other than Anuj, who is director of Hindi Gaurav and promoting in our Indian community and also launches shows like Indian Australian Idols. The next to me is Simranjeet Singh, who is running Fortune World Travel from 1 year and successfully running it and surely help you guys to make your journey happy and affordable. So let's start this show with Mr. Sanjay Deshwal with the very first question. Sanjay, please.
Thanks, Amrit. Welcome, Dr. Jeff Lee. Welcome again to the Harris Park. Jeff, I have noticed that you have been a strong promoter of always this area being labeled as the Little India part of the town. You have been vocal enough, and let me thank you again before that you were very instrumental in speaking up openly that Section 18C should be left the way it is, and I think so your views were much better followed up. Now, can you please tell us, for the benefit of the panel and our Indian subcontinent community, that what are the impediments you're facing, that why this Harris Park is not known as the Little India, otherwise it could be such a big boost for tourism over here.
Thank you, Sanjay, and thank you for recognising that I did stand up in Parliament, in the New South Wales Parliament, in my opposition to changes to 18C, and it was great when Tony Abbott took it on himself to keep it the same. Now, I think what a wonderful place Harris Park is for Indian food, fashion and retailing, and should be known as Little India. I think really what the community has to get together and tell its council, Parramatta Council, that it does want to promote itself as the Little India. And I think the fantastic thing about that would be, just like Norton Street is Italian, just like Cabramatta is Vietnamese, we could bring in lots of tourists, not just in the Parramatta area, but right throughout Sydney to come and enjoy what Little India has to offer. I mean, we have the largest collection of restaurants and retailing anywhere in Sydney or even in Australia, right here in Harris Park.
Thanks, Jeff. That brings mind another question, like, of late you would have noticed migrants always used to, more than equally, I would say, migrants used to bat in for labor. But of late, especially with people like you, so much popular with the Indian community, like Minister Victor Dominello, like Matt Keane, like David Elliott, you people have been very focal, very openly supporting the Indian community functions, and you've been regular to the Indian dignitaries and Indian functions. Now, what brings to my mind is that we have never seen anyone from subcontinent community getting a ticket for any of these MLAs or these MP positions. Whenever we see a ticket being given is to a dead seat, like which is already a foregone conclusion. What are your views about it, and when can you see a person, genuinely person from subcontinent, fighting for the Liberal Party for a good ticket or a good place?
Thanks, Sanjay, and I think you bring up a fantastic point in to say why, despite there's 400,000 people with Indian background in Australia, 100,000 of those living in New South Wales, many of them which live right here in Harris Park, Rose Hill, why haven't we seen more representation from people with Indian heritage? And I would suggest to you, say, it doesn't matter whether it's on either side of the party, it's about becoming involved in the political process. And that's what I'd like to encourage people with background, people with from the subcontinent, to actually become involved in the party, because unfortunately politics is a rough and tumble business, and it's all about, you have to get involved to make a difference. And without that involvement, there is no chance to get pre-selected. And politics is a tough business. So the more great people that get involved, it doesn't matter which side, the better the representation. And certainly I think the Indian Australian community has that critical mass to get involved.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for that. Mr. Parag Shah will be the next one who asks the question. Mr. Parag, please.
Thanks, Amrit. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Very good.
Good to see you back in Harris Park in our little India. I got a very specific questions for you, because of you always been supporter and promoter of the subcontinent communities. Right now, what we see is businesses are having a difficult times and passing through the difficult phase. Even the federal government has scrapped the carbon tax. We don't see much right now the benefits. So do state government have any plan, or do you have any special vision to increase or supporting the small businesses people back in Parramatta?
Well, thank you very much, Parag, and I think that's a great question, because we all know that the Australian Indian community are great small business people. Now, I think the role of the government can do a couple of things. The first thing is about reduction of red tape, and it's about trying to allow businesses to grow by themselves without the dead arm of government on them. The second thing what we've done, which I'm very proud of, is reduction in taxes. And you first talked about the carbon tax, which will mean every family will get another $550 odd every year, and that hasn't washed through the economy. It's payroll tax, for instance. The state government's reduced and put an incentive for people to employ new staff, and already in Western Sydney we see something like 10,000 odd people being employed with that payroll exemption to encourage small business. But I think the most important thing about being in government is to encourage businesses by letting them get on with their own business, removing that red tape, giving them incentives in payroll, make businesses prosper so that they can employ more people, so that we can stimulate demand. And a classic case of that is the housing industry, which is a driver of the state's economy. At the moment, we're building something like 50,000 odd homes a year. That's a 10-year high. That drives the whole economy, and that allows us to spend record spending on infrastructure for the whole of Western Sydney to make people's lives even better.
Thank you, Jeff. Great to have your views on this one, and you're the driver for business communities as a supporter, and we are very happy to listen and watching your views. Now, my second question is, we have been, there are many organizations from the subcontinent community, and what we find is state government has got the multicultures, and as a Victor Dominguez, multicultures ministers for that one. We approach to the government to support the community fairs and all the stuff. We don't find any support from the state government at all. So how do you stand for the subcontinent communities fairs and to support these programs from your side?
Thank you, Parag. You bring up a good point in terms of funding of community events, whether they're sporting events, whether they're cultural events, whether they're dance, whether they're educational events. I think the main thing is, with events such as this, the government has refined their criteria to fund events. So things like communities under the Minister Dominello there's different funding rounds, and it's depending upon the results that you want to drive. And for instance, some of his criteria on that funding is if you can bring different sections of the community together, not just the Indian section, but also perhaps the Chinese or the Koreans or Lebanese or whichever, to have a truly multicultural event. So it's community organisations need to understand that they should apply during that funding rounds to be accessible and to be apply at the right time for those events. The second type of funding is event funding. Now, Destination New South Wales has also funding rounds, and their drivers have slightly changed in the new government in terms of increasing visitation, especially interstate and international visitation. So they're concerned with driving the economy, because at the end of the day, it's it's not the government's money we're spending, it's the taxpayers' money we're spending. So for every dollar we spend, it comes out of someone else's pocket, hard-working citizens of New South Wales, that we must spend the most efficient way we can, so we drive the economy forward and give it to as much benefit as we can.
Thanks, Jeff. Our next one is Mr. Anuj. Let us know what's the question in your mind.
Hello, Jeffrey. Actually, as you know, traffic problem in Sydney, especially in Parramatta, as a nightmare. Do you have any plan to solve it?
You bring up a very good point about traffic and how the difficulties in Western Sydney, and everybody in Western Sydney just about needs a car. I think Parramatta is very lucky because of it's close to the M4, and soon when WestConnect start, we'll actually be building a major highway from Concord right to the city and to the airport, and it has the potential to save some 40 minutes and 52 sets of traffic lights. I think solving the traffic problems is very difficult, but there's no one single answer. There's no one golden answer that we can give, but it requires a multiple strategy, a multiple approach to how we solve these problems. For instance, number one, we've got to have jobs in the areas where people live. So Parramatta, Penrith, Liverpool. We need to strengthen jobs in our regional cities in Western Sydney so people can live and work within the same area, so they're not stuck on Victoria Road, Parramatta Road, any highway to try and get into the city. That's number one. The second thing is the roads that we do have, we've got to improve them. For instance, WestConnect's $11.5 billion going to be invested in that link between Parramatta, the city and the airport. I think that's essential. But the third thing is we've got to improve public transport. So it's great to see that we've got new Waratah trains on the Western Line. And in fact, we have trains every 10 minutes from Parramatta Station to the city from 6:30 in the morning to 9:30 at night. And you won't get a better service than that in anywhere out throughout Sydney, in the Western Sydney. Can I say, and the fourth thing is in terms of improving that public transport, is I was really delighted to see $400 million for Parramatta itself to get light rail, and we're just doing the study for that light rail. So by the end of the year, we'll have assessed 10 different corridors, and we'll come up with a top 2 or 3, and then we'll be able to recommend. So that money will be spent, $400 million, and light rail is so good because it's fast, friendly, and frequent, and it's going to be a game changer for Parramatta.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Anuj. Our lucky last member of our panel is Mr. Simranjit. Please, Mr.
Yeah, good evening, Jeff. Thanks for coming. The thing which I want to ask is, what are your thoughts on the Subclass 103 parent visa, which has been, the voluntary subclass has been removed. So just want to know, what are the ways we can get that subclass back into that panel, so that people who are from Indian origin, they can, get their parents here with them and stay with them. So just want to know your thoughts about it.
Look, you bring up a very good point, and it's been expressed throughout not just the Australian Indian community, but the Chinese Australian community, lots of different multicultural communities. And I think it's very difficult for those families who want to bring their parents or carers over to look after their kids. And of course, the federal government has recently closed the books to awaiting people. I understand there's something like 28,000 applications around there under processing at the moment. And the time frame is a typical time frame for that to happen is something like 16 years before somebody will actually get into Australia. Now, I've met with our Minister, Scott Morrison, about that. I've been down to Canberra to suggest to him that he reopen those cases. I've also followed that up with a letter, a representation. So I look forward to having future dialogues with Scott. Obviously, it's a federal issue into terms of how we can reopen that processing system up, because I know for a lot of the Indian Australian community, it's very important to have their parents being able to come over here in their later years, not only so they can look after their children, but they can be a part of the family. And I can only imagine how difficult it is when your whole family's over here, but your mum or your dad is over in India and away from you, especially when they're getting older and you want to take care of them. So I'm going to work with Scott, the Minister, on that, and I'll certainly let you know if anything, but I'm certainly asking him to open it up again.
Thanks, Jeff. Happy to know your thoughts about it. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff, for all the real questions and real answers. And here we go with our very interesting round, which is rapid fire round. And we'll probably make sure Jeff don't get any second for thinking. Okay, Jeff? Your favorite country for holidays?
India or China?
Oh, that's good. Favorite food?
Indian food, in terms of Indian, I like tandoori chicken.
Oh, good. Okay. And favorite game?
Monopoly.
Monopoly.
I was loved it when I was a kid.
Okay, and a favorite team from footy?
I think it's got to be the Eels or the Wanderers.
Okay, Parramatta Eels. Okay.
Parramatta Eels or Western Sydney Wanderers.
Okay, I'm from Parramatta Eels. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you for having me, guys, and it's been a real pleasure. And what a wonderful experience it's been to chat to you all and answer those really important questions, I think, for the Australian Indian community. And I think Sanjay, you brought up a great thing in terms of political representation. And I'd say to everybody that if they want to make a difference, to take that plunge and to become involved, because it's all right to sit there and talk about, I would like things to change. But unless you get involved in a political way and actually try and influence those decisions, and it's not for any particular party. I'm saying if you want to change the way we live, to change the way our laws are, to change the way we value in society, it's a fantastic opportunity. And I've only been involved in politics for 4 years, and already I can see that we're able to influence the way our community lives and what's important and our values and how business works and our education, our healthcare system. So I'd encourage everybody there listening to get aboard and put their views forward and belong to a political party somehow.
Thank you again for being in Harris Park. And I must thank our lovely host, Amrit, and Hindi Gaurav, Anuj Kulshrestha, for organizing this. Hindi Gaurav is the premier Hindi paper. It's one of the first newspapers in Australia which went in Hindi language, and it covers all the issues on time and the relevant issues. What is your views? You've definitely seen the Hindi Gaurav newspaper. What are your views about the Subcontinent paper?
I just want to say the paper does really well. Every function you're at they're on Facebook, and then the quality is very high, and I want to commend you guys for your hard work and your support of the community, because without that information getting out to the community, people won't know what's happening in some of our events. So well done, guys. You should be proud of what you're doing in the community. Just want to say a special thanks to Vishaal from Evergreen Memories. Your work is truly exceptional and you should be proud of what you do for the whole community.
At the last, I would like to thank to our panel, Mr. Sanjay, Mr. Parag, Mr. Anuj, and Mr. Simranjeet, and of course, Dr. Jeff for being here at the show. You guys please stay tuned, and we'll come back soon with another personality. Thank you.